Hey everybody, Joe here. Thanks for tuning in again. So now I'm going to get to painting the water. One of my favorite parts of any painting is doing the water. So the first thing I want to do is make sure that whatever I put on this canvas is done with the perspective in mind. That's my first task in painting a picture, is to make sure that whatever I do it in perspective as well as I can. So I'm going to get my little brush right here and put a few more lines in here. So I'm just going to water down my black paints. It's going to dry just, very quickly because it's just the thinnest layer of this water-based paint. But here I'm noticing that these are kind of far apart from each other. And so when something is just like my hands, when I turn them this way, they flatten out. So I want these to do the same thing. These are going to just be a reference point for my wave. So I'm just going to cut each of these horizontal sections in half and see how that looks. Just put a stripe across there, a stripe across here. And see, these distances look a lot more natural to me. So then I'll come in here, cut this one in half. And as a general rule, I just want, by the time I get to the top third of my body of water, to the horizon, so the horizon's here, when I get up to about this high, I want everything to start looking so scrunched together that you start to lose track of the shapes because they're so tightly squeezed together. So I really want to squeeze a lot of these lines into this area. So I'm not worried about, and maybe here I could have put 2 lines in there. I don't know. We'll just throw some lines in between lines. It's not like I did a real clean job. And I'm not going to be sticking strictly to this grid. I'm not going to do that. I just want it to be a good illustration of the kind of proportions that I'm talking about, of this size compared to how tiny this size is right here. Okay, so now that I've got that in there, I'm going to mix up 3 different colors that are going to represent my water. So when you look at water, it seems chaotic if there's a lot of movement to it. But I can promise you that it is very understandable. It doesn't take any special gift to be able to understand what you're looking at when you look at water. If water is completely calm, then it would have a glassy, smooth surface, and you would see more reflection on the distant part of it than you would where you were looking straight through it. So if my hand is water, this hand here, and then I'm looking straight through it, I see very little reflection if I'm looking straight through like this, looking down at my feet. But if I'm looking out at distant water at an angle like this, well, the light bounces off when it hits that angle. I see a lot of reflection there. So if I was just doing a glassy surface, then I would basically just paint an upside down image of this background right here on my water, and then I would make that image get more and more the color of what's under the water as it came closer to my feet, because you would see less and less of that reflection as you were looking more directly through it. So what is the color of the earth that's beneath this water? I need to mix that color. So I really like the look of light colored sand. I love that look. So I'm gonna make a light colored off-white. So I just need to, here, let's grab a brush. And I'm gonna pre-mix these colors because I'm gonna have to do a lot of blending to make this look really watery. So I'll make sure I make myself enough, and I just use these little storage containers that I just got from the grocery store. So I think I'll add the tiniest bit of orange, so red and yellow. We'll add a little bit of yellow, a little bit of red. I get asked all the time, don't you worry about the colors mixing together. The ratio is so small. The amount of yellow that I just put in this red, it's like one part to a million. Maybe I'm exaggerating, maybe it's not that big of a difference, but it's not enough to mess up my red, and that's an advantage to working out of these big buckets rather than smaller amounts on a palette. Okay, so let's see this color. I've got something that looks real peachy, like this. So if the sun is really shining on it, it might have that orangey color, but I'm thinking I'll add a little bit of black so that it looks a little bit more earthy. So now I've got red, yellow, and black in there for this color. And I think I'm going to lean a little bit more to the red because I know that when you mix paint colors, red is one of the first colors to disappear when you mix things and leaving things a little greener than you want them to. So I'm going to put a little bit of extra red in this paint. I think that that'll do it. See, it's just a real light peach color, and you grade out a little bit with black. Now, I want to assure you that this can be any color. This is just my decision of a color that I'm imagining the dirt to be. It could be anything. I mean, it could be fluorescent green, and you could still make this look like water. You're like, I'll believe that when I see it. Now, the next color, I want to do the color of my water. So water, if it's in a small amount like this, is just clear. But I want to think about the color that's going to be coming up when the water gets thick enough to have a color. So out here where it's 20 feet deep, what is the color? If it's real muddy water, it's going to be brown. If it's real tropical water, it might be turquoise. So I especially like blue water. So why don't I just make it this blue? I'm just going to put blue and white in here. But I don't want it to be exactly the same as the sky. So maybe I'll just make it slightly greener. Let's see what happens when I stir these up. Yeah, and this is really light too. You know, my deep water, I should call this the deep water color. Let's add a little bit of yellow to make it greener. And make it kind of green. That might have been too much yellow. We'll see. And maybe a little bit of black. Okay, maybe a little more black. This looks, you know, this is more like a lake than the ocean, so I don't want to make it too blue. Let's go. I want it to be dark enough that it looks like deep water out there. Let's go a little bit more black. Yeah, I think that color will do it. That'll be a good color. Okay, then my last color is going to be the color of my reflection. So I've already mixed, this color matches my sky. It's just blue and white. But what I'm going to do to that color, and I've got a different brush that I was using to mix that, is I'm going to add some of this magenta in it. And you could also just add red to it to accomplish the same thing. It's just making it a little bit more violet, so that, like I said, when this mixes with other colors and gets a little greener than I want it to, then that's going to be offset by this more violet hue, so that my reflection is not going to look overly green. There, see, just a little bit of that. When I get this all mixed up, it's still a shade of blue, just a little bit less turquoise and a little more violet. I suddenly have these smudges on my painting because I just now started to do a take with it, and I put the colors in the wrong order. I made a mistake. I should have just left it on video so you could see me making a mistake. But I am trying to keep this video as filled with correct information as possible, so I don't want to fill it up with bloopers, even though I know a lot of you would like that. I'm sorry I deleted the video. But for the record, this is me making a mistake, and if it happens to you, don't feel bad. So my strategy for this is going to be putting the faces of waves along this. To start with, I'll use the grid that I made, but then I'm going to move away from using the grid so that it looks a little more complicated and not so systematic, a little more natural. So I'm going to start with what is my earth color or sea floor color, whatever it is. And I'm going to make ovals that are real stretched out, and then they're just going to fade out on the ends. I don't want real geometric sharp edges. So I'll make a few of those, and notice they're going to touch each other. So, you know, it's up to you how big you want to make the faces of the waves and how big you want the difference between them to be. So me, I'm going to, in the foreground here, I'm really going to merge them together. There's going to be a lot of connecting shapes. I want to make sure that I'm working in an area small enough that the paint will stay wet for me, because I want to be able to blend it. You see, so where I have these close together, I don't want to make a circle and then make a skinny area in between it. I want to go ahead and just merge those together, because I want smooth, swooping shapes. Let's put one here, and then I'm going to kind of offset this. Maybe put this one a little bit below this X, put one a little below right here. I don't want them to look like they're all in just perfect aligned order, even though sometimes water does look like that. In my video, How to Paint Ripples, you'll definitely see that it has kind of a similar look to what would be generated on like a video game or something, where it's real systematic. It's made with a grid and it looks like it was made with a grid. Okay, so that's a lot of waves. They're going to start drying on me if I don't move to my other color. So this represents what's beneath the surface. Now I need what is above the surface, so I'm going to grab my reflection color and I'm going to start putting that in between right here. And I want to just blend these with soft edges. So soft edges means this. It means that they're just blurry. So by the time I'm done, there's still going to be recognizable system of shapes here, but just kind of blurred. And I don't want a lot of this color, just a little. So it's important to work fast in order to blend the paint. So there's not really a lot of room to be a perfectionist. So I'm just going to stick with these kind of slightly smile-shaped brush strokes and just work on staying on my edges. And I am grabbing my floor color and reapplying it if it looks like I need more paint. And if it starts to move away from my original shape pattern, that's okay. Doesn't really matter a lot. What really matters is just that I'm getting both of the colors on here, and the ratio that I'm getting them on in the foreground. I want to have a lot of that floor color and a little of the reflection color. See, I don't want to see that reflection color in full concentration anywhere on this foreground area. So I might come in here and add a little more. I can just add little waves in between waves, even though those weren't there in my grid. It's just going to create the look of waves just by putting that little oval shape somewhere. A lot of times what I'm calling an oval, if the waves are more choppy, is more of a diamond, or if they're real geometric, they can be diamond shapes too, or sometimes squares. It depends which directions these crossing wave patterns are going, and just how choppy those waves are, how extreme they are. Okay, so now let's put more of this color. I'm going to make more ovals. And the only thing I'm going to use this grid for now is just a reference on how close I want to put my shapes to each other. That's going to help me keep my perspective in line. You definitely don't need to have this grid to do a picture like this. So now I'm higher in the picture, I'm closer to the horizon. That means it's further away, and that also means there's more reflection and less underwater. And it also means that I want to have a little bit of my deep water color mixed into the floor color now. So see, whoa, that's a lot. So I'm going to take that color, and my ovals up in here are going to be made with that color. So let's put those in. Now I want to show you that it's really not important to get real perfectionistic with the location of these little wave faces with these ovals. There's more of my deep watercolor right there. What I'm concerned about is the scale and the mixing ratio. I want these to be stretched out a little bit flatter than what's down here. Okay, now I'm going to put my reflection color on. Now it's just paint, you know, as you progress, you can always come back and adjust things. Once again, my brush strokes are in a little bit of a swooping smile shape, and I'm just trying to blur out these edges. And I'm putting this reflection color in those in-between spaces. You can always get, if you want to get more detailed with a picture like this, I'm just dabbing if I put my brush in water, I'll dab it on the towel to get rid of some of the excess water. Okay, and then I can just quickly drag it across the picture, blending things together. If I want to make faster progress. Inevitably, you know, there will be areas that dry too fast on you, and you just redo them. That's the value of having these pre-mixed colors and understanding what they are and where they go. Okay, so now I'm making more of these ovals, and I'm going to mix my deep watercolor with these ovals. And then I'm going to grab some of my reflection color. See, I avoid calling it other things. I like specifying that it's the reflection color because it's a variable. You know, in an equation, it's the thing that can change. Put that there. All right, so then up in here, now this is going to be a lot deeper water. So look, here's my deep watercolor. And look how close together my X's are. So rather than try to get exactly on these little X's, I'm just going to put little ovals that are as close together as the X's are. But I'm not even thinking about the actual. Okay, right there I did actually try to make it on the X. It's kind of funny how you, when you see it, you automatically do it. You know, if the training wheels are there, you end up using them. That is just a fact of life. All right, now I'm going to add a little bit of this is my floor color, because remember, as this gets further away, it's moving from the floor color to the deep water color, which altogether is the underwater. See, so I have a gradient going that's moving from this tan to this deep blue-green. And then I'm going to put my reflection color in between that. Let's get this floor color. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, this is a hard thing to do. And so, if you do this, then give yourself a pat on the back, because you accomplished something that is higher difficulty level in painting. It's what I would describe as a complex gradient. But, like I said, having those colors pre-mixed, knowing what they are, is key. You can fall into the pattern real quick of trying to get your little shapes in the right place. Don't even think about it. You know, as long as you're spacing them apart and understanding what colors go together, then you're good. And, you know, trying to use that, the changing ratio of how much reflection color compared to how much. So here, I'm going to start seeing more reflection color too. Now you've seen me in other videos do a lot of wet on dry technique where I'm doing the reflection color over this when it's already dry. And that's a good technique too. I just chose this technique for this painting just to show a different approach to thinking about it. My brush is grabbing the colors and blending them together, sometimes without me wanting it to, but it's okay because it still works. You know, as long as the colors are there and just kind of in the right scale, the right size, then it's going to look all right. So here, if you want to pay more attention to detail, this is where you might get a smaller brush, because I might have trouble at this point getting small enough shapes. I'm going to see, but for the sake of time, I'm going to avoid switching to a smaller brush. I'm going to get this painting done. I'm just trying to really stretch it out horizontally, long horizontal shapes. So notice up here, I'm not even using that sand color, the floor color anymore. I just went straight to the deep water color. You can really just, once you get up in here, you can just start putting brush strokes together. And the way I do those brush strokes is I'm using the brush sideways, and the fatter part of the stroke is in the middle because I go a little closer to the canvas in the middle of the stroke. You know, it's like from the side view, I'm going to exaggerate it. It's going like this, closer in the middle of the stroke. But you know, that's kind of a motor skill that I've developed over years that you shouldn't feel bad if it doesn't immediately come easy for you. Definitely something that gets better with time and familiarity with the painting tools. Just blending the underwater with the reflection color. I just want to have visible difference between the two. Between the two, meaning the reflection color and that deeper water color. Now I'm noticing that I kind of lost my gradient. It just very suddenly changes to the deeper water color. So it's just paint. I can redo things. I'll take this tan color and try to do a better job of blending these two things more gradually. And this is where, you know, maybe some water is good. Make this paint flow out a little bit more. So now you can see that I've completely disregarded that grid, and I'm just working on making a gradient. That goes from my floor color to the deep water color. And then while that's still wet, I'm going to add the reflection color. And there's more of the reflection color the higher I get in the picture. Okay, now let's take this and just start filling it up all the way with reflection color up in here. Now that's going to change, of course, because up here, if I turn these hills upside down, that's what's going to be reflecting. But I want to show you how this looks like water by having this pattern. And I'm establishing where my reflection is on the water. Okay, let's bring it right up to this bank. Let's bring it up to there. Like I said, that's going to change. I just want to see a complete edge. Then watch how I'll put less and less of the deep watercolor. Now I do want to remember where my grid was, because those angles are important. Those angles are what make my perspective. So I don't want to forget that these waves are getting more, see, they're tilted down here, but as they get higher in the picture, they're going to be more perfectly horizontal. Oh, I got some bad color off the side of the bucket there. So less and less of this. So these are just little faces of waves out in the deeper part of this lake. Out here, I don't care about blending it so much. It's real little, so blended edges or hard edges, you know, it's not as big of a visual difference when it's way up there. So on this one, I'm not going to sweat it. But I do want to have real consistent angles. I can't stress enough how much the angles of your strokes affect the look of that water. When you're far away, like I said when we were painting the shoreline, a little bit of up-down change, you know, an edge that goes up represents a lot of distance. So it really messes with the perspective when you don't have consistency to these horizontal shapes. All right, so now I'm going to see if I can fill this in here. Now I'm back to my foreground color, and I'm going to add my deep water color in there. I want to make my transition a little bit better. I'll tell you what I'm going to do, you know, now that we've established what that is, switch to a bigger brush. This is what I mixed that with here. Just put that on there. Put this here. So you see, I can just do it by this method too if it works better for you. I'm just getting rid of paint in here. I start with just a basic gradient that goes from that tan color to my deep water color. See? Put this on there. You see, that kind of looks like it's getting into deeper water since it's got that gradient on there. And then I just add my reflection color. But with that method, you know, especially if I was working with oil, it makes it harder to get the separation between the reflection color and the underwater color. But since this is water-based, it's going to be okay. Again, you know, I'm really striving to have a clean brush stroke that leaves this shape going toward and then away and then slightly in a smile shape. I guess it just kind of depends on the style of the painting you're going for. Sometimes a looser technique leaves more to the imagination and makes for a better piece. A lot of times people like it better when you don't make everything vivid and obvious. Okay, as I get up in here now, I didn't mean to put that tan color up in there. That was an accident. We'll just say it's a shallow part of the water. I just want to get more and more of my reflection color as it gets that high. You see the shapes get so small and so tight that they eventually close together. And there's no more angles left to show the other color. The color's all based on the angle of the surface of the water in relation to your eyes. There, now I can put these little dark colors. Now I'm spending all this time on this spot when I said I was going to put some vegetation hanging over the water right there, so I should just move away from that. Let's go over here where I'm actually planning to have that water showing. And if you make this base coat real thin, then it makes it easier to put that reflection color on it and have it show. If you get this real thin, there's a balance there, not making it so thin that it dries lightning fast, but this doesn't seem to be drying too fast on me right now. So I'm going to put it on nice and thin so that when I put that reflection color, it's easier to make it show without it just getting blended into my other colors. Just want to flatten out my brush. I always try to keep that nice flat shape to the brush. I go through them quick. That's why I don't buy expensive brushes, because when I did, I destroyed the shape just as quick as I did with the cheap brushes. Didn't matter if the bristles fell out, I was destroying the shape of it before it ever got that far. This right here. I don't remember if I had another bank shooting out. I think I had another thing shooting out right there, but just put some skinny little strips that are the faces of waves here in the distance. Back up and look at it. Yeah, I like the way that looks. You see, it looks like there's a gradual bank going down into the water. I like it. All right, let's finish out this shoreline. Here, let's put these here. Put that there. way up here in the front, I hardly even need any reflection color at all. You know, I'm just completing the shapes of just those very subtle shapes of waves. And you know, that's if you want to. You don't even have to put that in. Just the gradient alone will make it look like water. Okay, so when we come back to this next week, it's going to be bringing this reflection into this system in a way that you can keep track of it and understand why you're putting what colors where. You know, for me, that's what lets me take knowledge from one picture into another project, so that I always feel like I'm, you know, gaining some ability, is knowing why I'm putting what colors where. In that way, I'm a little bit of a control freak, I guess. I like to be able to imagine it and then do it like I imagine it as much as possible. But sometimes, as Bob Ross would say, happy accidents do happen. Just put this in there. So here, I've got kind of a messy area, so I can just, like I said, it's just paint. I can redo it. So I'm going to come in here and put my underwater colors. I get asked a lot, you know, how do you work with it? It's drying too fast. I don't know how to blend it. A lot of the time, the problem is just being too nervous to put enough paint on there. So I'm making sure that I do put enough on here that I have a little bit of time to blend it. All right, then I'm going to reach behind me and grab this reflection color again. So you see, I started by painting those oval wave faces. Now I've switched to just painting a solid base and just putting the reflection over it. But the point here is that you just have these horizontal shapes and you blend them together, the edges of them. Look, I'll just kind of drag this across the whole thing. See, now I'm going back to the wave faces in between, trying to blend the edges of that sky reflection. Okay, let's take a look at some comments from last week. Marcus Moylan at the top of the list here saying, "Why are you so awesome? And what will Father Rossi do with your pretty paintbrush?" Well, I can assure you that I'm not that awesome. Anybody that's lived with me for a while can testify to that I'm quite ordinary with ordinary annoying tendencies. But thank you for the very nice compliment. And I promise you that I am no more than your equal and probably less awesome than you are. As for the paintbrush, it's his paintbrush. He can do whatever he wants with it. Consuela Cobb, happy late birthday. My birthday is August 5th. I knew there was a reason I liked your videos. All right, yay for August 5th birthdays. And I put the next name into Google Translate. I think it's Ivan, also on August 5th. So big hooray for August 5th birthdays. That's when I turned 37 now. Terry says, love watching your videos. And I'm going to shorten this comment. Watching you, I've improved my techniques and I'm learning something new. And for this reason, thanks. Thank you for leaving that very nice comment. And that's always a big encouragement to me that some information transfers over and is useful to others. That I get the biggest thrill out of that. Do you think natural brushes are better than synthetic ones for painting with acrylic? I like synthetic brushes better. I left that in the comment because they, like the brush I was just now using, to me they just have more of a razor sharp edge to them. And then I have trouble finding any natural bristle brushes that don't have a little bit more of a jagged edge. Maybe for other techniques they'd be better. I don't know, I just prefer the synthetic bristles. I think that's an issue of preference for sure. G, I don't know, says, I was wondering if you could do a video of an ocean with a bright sunset scene behind it to capture all the colors like yellows, reds, and greens reflecting on the water. I'm having a hard time blending all of them together. Well, I hope that this video is some help to that, because I can assure you that the system is the same for an ocean scene with the waves. They do the same thing as they tip towards you. You see what's under the water, away you see what's in that sky. From there, it's just understanding what you need the reflection color to be. And so we'll get more into that. Yeah, one of these days we'll definitely do an ocean scene with the sunset. That'll be on the list. Nice Eggs says, God bless you and your family, Joe. I've learned heaps from you, mate. All the best from New Zealand. All right. Thank you for that nice comment and for tuning in all the way over there in New Zealand. That's exciting to me. Valerie Connell, who lives here in Flagstaff, says that Jason, he goes over to Visible Difference to get linen to paint on for pretty cheap. So thanks for that comment, Valerie. Anybody watching locally, you can go over to Visible Difference if you like painting on linen. Skyrider, I like this comment, says, hues, saturation, shades, values, contrast. Thank you, Joe. I finally get it. I can see the landscape, but now understand why I see it the way I do. Your videos are a tremendous help. That it makes such a big difference when you have things defined well. You know, for me in the learning process, definitions are so important. I do not like things that are not defined clearly. They just are sources of confusion when you're trying to figure something out. Chris Channer says, hey Joe, how do you get time to do all these videos for us? Is business slow or something? Well, it does get slow in the mural business. It does, you know. I always have to make a choice where I'm going to put my time. And I do put a lot of time these days into trying to put out videos, because I think, as many people have said, there's more value in showing people how to do things than just doing a good job. I think that most of you probably don't care a lot about how great of an artist I am, but are probably more interested in how good of a job I do at showing you what I'm doing. And because I value that, I'm just intentionally putting a lot more of my time into this YouTube channel. Angelo DiMartino says, I would love to fly out to Arizona for one of your classes. So many questions I have for you. Love your videos. Thank you for that super nice compliment. And I do have workshops that Angelo is referring to, and I'm trying to schedule more of those. There's one coming up here pretty soon, in just a couple weeks, on September 15th, and I'm going to try to schedule more after that. So if you go to learn.muraljoe.com/workshops, then that's the page where I post any coming up workshop. I'm trying to be better about making more of those. Stuart DeCosta says, your t-shirt looks awesome, man. Thanks, Stuart. That's all the comments I'm going to take for now, and thank you again for tuning in, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.